Hello again. We're going to finish up our unit on the executive branch, Unit I, by taking a look today at Chapter 16. So again, make sure you've read Chapter 16 in your textbook to assist you in understanding the concepts covered in this brief lecture. The issue in Chapter 16 is, now that we know about the bureaucracy, which was covered in Chapter 15, the vast amounts of people and departments and agencies that need to be conducted, we understand this is going to cost a lot of money. So how do we finance this executive branch of government is the question that we're going to tackle in Chapter 16. Article 1, Section 8 of our Constitution grants the Congress the power to tax in order to pay for administrative costs. This can also be an income tax, as you will come to see in a project we're doing in class about the fairness of an income tax that is administered here in America. Taxes then must be used, however, for public purposes to pay for federal government and not a tax on exports. The income tax is our largest source of federal revenue. It is progressive, and that's the question of fairness. The more you make, the higher percent is your taxes. So if you're in a low income bracket, you would pay, say, maybe 12% of your income to taxes. However, if you have a large income, due to the progressive nature of the income tax, you might pay 50%, half of your income, towards taxes. So is it fair to pay such a higher percent than those with a lower income bracket? That's why oftentimes around tax time you hear your dad or mom saying, oh boy, we better give some money away so that we don't move up to a higher tax bracket. The reason for that concern is that if they get higher tax bracket, they end up paying a higher percent in their taxes if they make over a certain amount. These taxes then will help pay for Grandpa and Grandma's Medicare, Medicaid. Also, for those who are unemployed, they do get an unemployment compensation. If you've ever been unemployed, you can file for unemployment. Other types of taxes besides personal income tax are excise, custom, and gift or death taxes, oftentimes called estate taxes. The government can take in non-tax revenue as well for fees and fines. Fees such as those associated with acquiring a passport, or other fees for any kind of permits or things that you need from the government. Also, as covered earlier under the powers of Congress, the government can borrow money to pay for its bureaucracy. The public debt is increasing, as we've mentioned earlier and covered in successive projects. Deficit financing seems to be the order of the day. We continue to borrow in order to spend. Of course, our spending priorities must be first on the entitlements. Entitlements are those things in the budget that we must pay, that we have promised, such as your Social Security checks to Grandpa and Grandma, your Medicare, your other interest on loans, things that you can't avoid. Then they have what's called discretionary spending. Maybe, for example, to add a new fighter jet program to the Defense Department. It's optional. If you feel that we need it, then they can add that to the budget. That is how a budget is made then for our large government. Each department head is responsible to submit their budget to the Office of Management and Budget, and sometimes it needs to be cut or trimmed. But then each department is then funded in that way. There's many budget hurdles, as you know, because there's so many things that nobody wants to cut. You don't want to cut funding for college. You don't want to cut funding for various pet projects. Also, a lot of this is very political, depending on what is the focus at the moment. So keep an eye on these budget struggles as you watch the newspaper and how the federal budget is created each year, or also the lack of a federal budget, in which time there's oftentimes temporary spending bills passed.